It's a bitter January morning in 1793, and Paris has no idea it's living through the final hours of a thousand-year monarchy. Within 12 hours, a king will die not in battle, not by assassination, but by the will of his own people, legally, publicly, deliberately. The execution of Louis XVI will not just end a reign. It will tear open a wound across Europe that will bleed for decades, dragging millions into wars that reshape the world. But right now, at dawn on the 21st of January, the city is waking slowly. Frost clings to cobblestones. Smoke rises from chimneys. Bakers are already at work. You're standing at the corner of Rue Saint-Honoré watching the city stir. The air smells of wood smoke and horse dung, and yesterday's rain still lingering in the gutters. Somewhere across the Seine in the temple prison, a man is praying. He's written his will. He said goodbye to his children. He's asking God for strength. He doesn't know that in the Place de la Révolution, carpenters are already testing the blade. Neither does the woman buying bread beside you, neither do the soldiers marching past, neither do you, not yet. You're standing outside the temple, a medieval fortress in the Marais district that has become the most famous prison in France. The walls are gray limestone 40 feet high, crowned with turrets that once belonged to the Knights Templar. Guard towers rise at each corner. You can see National Guard soldiers packing the ramparts, muskets on shoulders, breath misting in the cold. The temperature is just below freezing. Your fingers ache. The sky is the color of lead. Inside those walls, Louis Capet, they won't call him king anymore, is awake. He's been awake for hours. Parish records tell us he rose at 5, heard mass from the Irish priest Abbé Edgeworth, took communion. He's wearing a brown coat and breeches, simple clothing. He's 48 years old, balding, thick around the middle, not the image of majesty, just a man. He's asked for scissors to trim his hair. They refuse, fearing he'll harm himself. He protests. Do you think I would deprive myself of the few hours remaining to me? They give him the scissors. His hands don't shake. You watch the gate, soldiers come and go. A carriage waits nearby, already prepared. The horses stamp and snort, vapor streaming from their nostrils. Across the street, a woman sells chestnuts roasted over a brazier. The smell is sweet and comforting, absurdly normal. A child runs past, chasing a dog. The morning sounds are ordinary, cartwheels on stone, vendors calling, church bells marking the hour. 7 o'clock, somewhere in the Tuileries gardens, the guillotine stands waiting. It's been there since yesterday. Workers erected it carefully, testing the mechanism, greasing the grooves. The blade weighs 60 pounds. It falls from 15 feet. Death, they promise, will be instantaneous. More humane than the noose, they say. Progress. To move west, you walk through the narrow streets of the Marais, past tenement houses where Parisian workers live 6 to a room. Laundry hangs from windows despite the cold, shirts and breeches frozen stiff as boards. The cobblestones are slick with ice and filth. You pass a bakery where a queue is already formed. Bread costs 8 sous a pound now, triple what it cost 5 years ago. A laborer earns perhaps 30 sous a day if he's lucky. If there's work, there isn't always work. People are hungry. They've been hungry for years. This is part of why we're here, why this day is happening. You reach Rue Saint-Honoré, one of the great arteries of Paris, running east to west through the heart of the city. The buildings here are taller, the shops more prosperous, tailors, wigmakers, booksellers, cafes. This is where the middle classes live, the bourgeoisie who have remade France in their image. In the Jacobin club nearby, Robespierre is probably awake, preparing speeches, considering the future. He voted for the king's death without hesitation. Louis must die so that the nation may live, he said. Clean logic, revolutionary arithmetic. The street is filling now. National Guard units march past in their blue coats and red caps, drums beating a steady rhythm that echoes off the building facades. You can hear the sound long before you see them and long after they pass. A woman leans from a second-story window watching. Her face is unreadable. Does she support this, mourn it, fear what comes next? All three perhaps. The revolution has made patriots and criminals of everyone, and the line between them shifts daily. Yesterday's hero is tomorrow's traitor. Danton warned about this. The revolution devours its children, he'll say later, before it devours him too. You're now approaching the Tuileries Gardens, where the royal palace once stood, where Louis and Marie Antoinette lived until the mob stormed it in August 1792, massacring the Swiss guards who defended them. The palace is empty now, ransacked, windows broken. But the gardens remain, formal French parterres stretching toward the Place de la Révolution beyond. And there, at the western edge, you can see it. The Guillotine. It stands on a raised platform 12 feet high so everyone can see. The two uprights rise like a doorframe to nowhere. Between them the blade waits at the top, angled 45 degrees, held by a rope and pulley system. The wood is painted red, new, built specifically for this. The carpenters who assembled it are probably in a tavern now, drinking, trying not to think about what their hands have made. Charles Henry Sanson, the executioner, has already arrived. He's checking everything twice. This cannot fail, the world is watching. Around the platform, soldiers are forming a cordon, 15,000 National Guard, cavalry, infantry, artillery pieces positioned at every intersection. The government is taking no chances. They fear rescue attempts, riots, chaos. The crowd is already gathering despite the cold, despite the early hour. Men in rough wool coats, women in shawls, children darting between adults' legs. Some have brought bread and wine, a festival atmosphere almost. Others are silent, faces drawn. You notice one old man weeping quietly, standing alone. No one speaks to him. If you're finding yourself pulled into this world, consider subscribing. There are many more days like this one waiting. The air smells different here, wood and metal and something else, fear perhaps or anticipation. It's the smell of history holding its breath. You notice the trees are bare, skeletal branches black against the gray sky. Crows circle overhead, cawing, melodramatic but real. The records mention them. In the distance, church bells toll 8 o'clock. 2 hours remain. You're standing now at the Place de la Révolution itself, what used to be called the Place Louis XVI, named for the condemned man's grandfather. The statue of Louis XVI was torn down 3 years ago, melted for cannon. In its place, an empty pedestal. In its place, this machine. The square is enormous, one of the largest public spaces in Paris, designed for royal celebrations. Today it will serve a different purpose. The crowd has swelled to tens of thousands. They pack the square, line the surrounding streets, fill windows and rooftops. Vendors move through them selling food, drink, pamphlets. Everything is for sale, even this. You can buy a commemorative print of the execution before it happens. You can buy tricolor ribbons, liberty caps, miniature guillotines as souvenirs. The revolution has an economy all its own. The atmosphere is strange, not quite celebration, not quite mourning, something suspended between. You hear laughter, arguments, prayers. A group of sans-culottes, the radical working-class revolutionaries, sing the Sa Ira, the violent anthem that promises aristocrats will hang from lampposts. But nearby, a woman clutches a rosary, lips moving silently. A priest in civilian clothing, they're forbidden to wear vestments now, makes the sign of the cross. The revolution proclaimed religious freedom, then persecuted the church. Another contradiction, there are so many. 9 o'clock passes, then 9:30. The carriage should have left the temple by now. It's a slow journey winding through streets deliberately chosen to prevent rescue attempts. Troops line every meter. The government has closed every shop, every tavern, ordered citizens to stay indoors unless they're attending the execution. Paris is a city under military occupation, occupying itself. You watch the eastern approach, any moment now. You're now at the base of the scaffold, as close as the soldiers will allow. You can see every detail, the wooden steps leading up, 10 of them, the platform itself about 12 feet square, the plank where the condemned will lie horizontal with a curved wooden yoke to hold the neck in place, the basket positioned below to catch the head. They've lined it with bran to absorb the blood. Practical details, someone had to think of these things. 10 o'clock, a murmur ripples through the crowd. There, at the far side of the square, a green carriage appears surrounded by cavalry. It moves slowly, so slowly, taking 20 minutes to cross the square. When it finally stops at the scaffold base, there's a moment of complete silence. Tens of thousands of people, utterly still. You can hear the horses breathing, you can hear the wind. The carriage door opens. Louis steps out. He's wearing the brown coat still, a white waistcoat and breeches. His hands are unbound, he refused to let them tie him. He's accompanied by Abbé Edgeworth and he looks calm. Witnesses will report this. Newspaper accounts will confirm it. He climbs the steps steadily without hesitation. At the top he tries to speak. Frenchman, I die innocent, I pardon those who, but the drum major on orders signals the drummers. A massive roll drowns out his words. The executioner and his assistants move quickly now. They remove his coat, tie his hands behind his back. He resists briefly, then submits. They push him forward onto the plank. The yoke clamps down on his neck. The blade falls. The sound, multiple witnesses describe it, is like a butcher's cleaver hitting a thick board, sharp, final, impossibly loud, then silence again. Sanson lifts the head by its hair, shows it to the crowd as custom demands. Blood streams from the severed neck, splattering the platform. Some in the crowd rush forward, trying to dip handkerchiefs in the blood, revolutionary relics. Others turn away. Someone shouts, Vive la République. The cry spreads, becomes a roar that fills the square, echoes off the buildings. But it sounds hollow somehow, forced. You stand there watching. The body is placed in a wicker basket, taken to the Madeleine Cemetery, buried in quicklime. No marker, no ceremony beyond this. 1,000 years of Bourbon dynasty ended with a rope release in gravity. It took less than 2 seconds. Marie Antoinette will follow in 9 months. Then the Girondins, then the Hébertists, then Danton, then Robespierre himself. The blade doesn't care about politics. It just falls, over and over. The terror is beginning, though nobody calls it that yet. They think this is the end of violence. They're so wrong. How do we know this? The execution of Louis XVI is one of the most documented events of the 18th century. Newspaper accounts from Le Moniteur Universal and other journals provide minute-by-minute coverage. The official trial records of the National Convention survive, including voting tallies. 387 deputies voted for death, 334 against or for alternative punishment. Edgeworth's testimony about Louis's final hours was published within months. Sanson's own memoirs, compiled by his descendants, describe the execution in clinical detail. Witness accounts number in the dozens, from deputies like Louis-Philippe Jourdan to ordinary Parisians whose letters and diaries ended up in archives. Archaeological evidence adds physical dimension. The guillotine's mechanism is preserved in the Musée Carnavalet. The temple prison was demolished in 1808, but architectural drawings show its layout precisely. The Place de la Révolution, renamed Place de la Concorde after the Terror, still exists, though the Luxor obelisk now stands where the guillotine stood. That spot is marked on tourist maps, visited by thousands who don't quite know what they're standing on. The gaps are real, though. We can't know what Louis thought in his final moment, whether he felt fear or peace or nothing at all. We can't know what the weeping old man in the crowd was remembering. Perhaps he'd served the king, perhaps he'd simply grown up in a world where kings were permanent as stones. We don't know the names of most people there, whether they went home feeling justified or guilty or numb. History preserves the extraordinary and loses the ordinary. It always does. Within a month, France was at war with Britain, Spain, and Holland. Within a year, the terror was consuming itself, the guillotine working daily, blood literally running in the gutters. Within 22 years, Napoleon Bonaparte would crown himself emperor, restoring monarchy in everything but name. The revolution ate its children, then its grandchildren, then finally itself. But something had changed permanently. The divine right of kings died on that platform. The idea that authority came from God through bloodlines, that subjects owed obedience to their betters simply because they were born better, that idea bled out into the bran-lined basket and couldn't be resurrected. Every democracy that followed, every constitution guaranteeing popular sovereignty, every revolution against tyranny traces its lineage partly to this cold January morning. The Parisians watching couldn't have known they were standing at a hinge point of history. They thought they were solving problems: bread prices, debt, oppression. They thought executing the king would bring peace. Instead, it brought decades of war. But they had to make their choices with the knowledge they had, the fears they felt, the hopes they carried. Desperate people do desperate things. Hungry people remake the world. Neither did they, neither do we.